Okay, Rabotai, we are going to be starting a Sidrat Shiurim on the different halachot in the Shulchan Aruch that, according to the Masoret HaPsak of Chachmei HaMa'arav, and we'll call them the Sfaradim, how we are posek. And it's interesting to note that if you take a look at the market of the Mishnah Berura, there's many different Mishnah Beruras for Sfaradim. In other words, that takes the text of the Mishnah Berura, and on the side it has notes for the Sfaradim. And it says notes for Sfaradim in Edut HaMizrach. I counted at least eight different editions, and many of them, not all of them, but many of them do the exact same thing. They quote the Kaf HaChaim, Ben Ish Chai, the Sfarim of Rav Ovadia Yosef, and Rav Ben Zion Abba Shaul. And it just goes over. I don't know why they need so many Mishnah Beruras doing the exact same thing. We're going to attempt to learn Al Pi Seder HaMishnah Berura what would be the psak according to the Chachmei HaSfaradim. That means not Edut HaMizrach, but those were posek according to the derech of the Sfaradim, which is those who came from Sfarad. And we'll see that it's a different derech hapsak than a lot of these Mishnah Beruras that are quoted. And a lot of them are very different. Some of them are slightly different, and we'll see that based on the Klalei Hapsak that we were zoche to publish, called Klalei Orah Lefi Minhag HaMa'arav. Anybody who wants a copy, email magenrabbi@gmail.com or librosmar, librosmarr@gmail.com. That's Rabbi Yosef Peretz from Panama. We both wrote this kuntras on how the derech hapsak of the Moroccan communities was for hundreds and hundreds of years, ever since Girush Sfarad. This is minhagim and klalim atikim, that in the thousands of dayanim and hundreds of batedin that there were throughout the ages, what were the klalim that they were posek? What were the what was their guidebook? Every klal has yotze min klal. That's known. But despite the fact that every klal has yotze min klal, you have to know the basis, because that's what's going to be your guiding light, and then you'll be able to know when you have a yotze min klal. But you have to start off by knowing what's the original klalim and what's not. So I'm not going to go through all of the kuntras of the Klalei Hapsak. As we go along, we'll mention things that are relevant. So let's start. Everybody should have a Mishnah Berura in front of them. Maybe you don't have now tonight, but in the future you should have a Mishnah Berura in front of you. We're going to learn through the Mishnah Berura. Okay. I'm going to give some highlights. I'm not going to go through everything where it's relevant for the Moroccan communities, but let's start with one subject that I would say is a reoccurring theme. The Shulchan Aruch in Siman Dalid talks about Dinei Netilat Yadayim of the morning. Okay? So he starts off the following. Yirchatz Yadav. So we're going to learn Mishnah Berura together, and I hope one of the objectives of the next few shiurim is to be ragil, to see what's the derech hapsak, how we know how to paskin from a Shulchan Aruch Mishnah Berura, where there are so many shitot And you look at the Sephardic Mishnah Berurahs, a lot of them, they confuse even more by bringing many different opinions. Okay. Yirchatz yadav v'yivarech al netilat yadayim. Obviously, the right way to learn this is together with the Bet Yosef. Because of time allowance, we're not going to be able to do that, but you have to keep in mind, you always, whenever you have a question, you see what's written in the Bet Yosef and you compare. So it starts with the following. Yirchatz yadav v'yivarech al netilat yadayim. Person wakes up in the morning, he washes his hands, and he makes a bracha al netilat yadayim. V'yesh omrim, and some say, Gam asher yatzar ve'afilu lo asat tzrachav v'chem nahagu. And some say that even asher yatzar, even if he didn't go to the bathroom, which is quite interesting, even though the Mekor is from the Abu Dram, and the Abu Dram was a very important klal that the Moroccans were posek, like in Alpi the Abu Dram. First of all, he came from the same area in Spain, from Castilla, the Abu Dram, next to the Ran, everywhere else, and there's families, many Abu Dram families from Morocco, but the Rama brings it down, but the Shulchan Aruch seems to be quite clear that the bracha is al netilat yadayim and we don't say asher yatzar, and that in other words, when we don't have a clear minhag otherwise, the Shulchan Aruch is our deciding factor. Besides the fact that Al Pi the Arizal in Shara Kavanat and the Birkei Yosef write that this is the halacha, this is clearly, you see, there's no minhag otherwise. It's known that there's no minhag. You make a bracha on netilat yadayim. This is very relevant when a person stays up all night and he wants, it's on Shavuot morning, let's say he wants to say the brachot. He'd have to go to the bathroom in order to say Asher Yatzar. Can't say Asher Yatzar in the morning without going to the bathroom. Okay? Shulchan Aruch continues. Mayim psulim lenetilat yadayim leseuda kesherim lenetilat yadayim. So let's say he has water that you can't use for the seuda. It's kosher for netilat yadayim letfilah. Miu yesh mi sheomer delo mevarech alayu. Nevertheless, some say he shouldn't make a bracha. He shouldn't make a bracha. Now this is very interesting because what do you do with the Shulchan Aruch that says Miu yesh mi sheomer delo mevarech alayu? There are those who say. So the makor of this yesh mi sheomer is the Ra'ah, and the Ra'ah really is a shita yechida. And if you learn the Bet Yosef, you'll see that it's a minority opinion, the Ra'ah. And nevertheless, the Shulchan Aruch seems to be choshesh for such an opinion. He says some say you don't make a bracha of netilat yadayim. Now, if you look inside the Mishnah Berurah, it says Rotza lomar. He doesn't make an netilat yadayim, but he still makes a bracha of al nikiyut yadayim. And then in Sifkat and Zayin, Mishnah Berurah says the achronim were machriya that he should make a bracha. He could make a bracha of al netilat yadayim. Now this is very interesting. So you have over here that the Shulchan Aruch brings a yesh mi she'omer that you don't make a bracha, mashma that you don't make a bracha at all. Even though the Ra'ah himself says to make a bracha of al nikiyut yadayim, here it would seem to be that you don't make a bracha at all. Now, since in the Bet Yosef, so it's a little bit confusing, this halacha, because Mishnah Berurah says you make a bracha. The Shulchan Aruch is quoting a Ra'ah that says you don't make a bracha of al netilat yadayim, but then you should make al nikiyut yadayim. So this is where it's a perfect example. In order to know how to paskin, you have to look in the Bet Yosef. If you look in the Bet Yosef, he's clearly mashma that you don't make a bracha on water that is pasul and yadayim leseuda. And therefore, if you take a look at the Ma'amar Mordechai, who was one of the great Turkish Acharonim, Rav Mordechai Karmi, Sifkat and Gimel, he also says not to make a bracha. And the Ma'amar Mordechai is very important because we're going to see that many Acharonim knock Shulchan Aruch many times, and some of the only Acharonim that are going to defend the Shulchan Aruch is the Ma'amar Mordechai and the Moroccan Chachamim, and it gives strength. If you want to follow Shulchan Aruch, you know also the Ma'amar Mordechai holds this way. We're going to see a few examples, but this is one of them, that the Ma'amar Mordechai says that despite the fact that it might not be 100% clear in the Shulchan Aruch, maybe you should make a bracha of Nekiyut Yadayim, but since his Shulchan Aruch says, Yesh Omrim Lo Mevarach Alayhu, it doesn't bring those who argue, that's how we follow. Especially because of Safek Brachot Le'akel, you don't make a bracha. So anytime you're using water that's pasul for Seudah, let's say you only thing you have around is juice or something, you cannot make a bracha. Okay, let's continue on the same vein. We'll continue to Seif Bet. Okay, Seif Bet says you should be careful to wash 3 times to remove the Ruach Ra. Now, what's the reason why we do the Netilat Yadayim in the morning? The Shulchan Aruch writes Al Piderech HaPshat because your hands are dirty, or the Rashba says because you're preparing for Tefillah. But here he introduces also, there's a concept, a Kabbalistic concept of Ruach Ra. Ruach Ra, you have a spiritual bad Ruach on the hands that you have to remove. Why am I emphasizing this? Because there's a Bir Alacha in Dibra Matchil Kaman. I don't know if you guys got a chance to prepare to look at things inside or not. Yeah, so there's a Bir Alacha that says, oh wow, look at that. Look at that. Bir Alacha says like this. The Rama in brackets says what's called Maim Psulim L'Seudah. He says, look later on. Mashba mehem de kavanat Rama lomar de dafka bazeh anu choshishin ledat mishumer dolem mevarach alayu. Aval kli v'koach gavra o en lo revi'it mayim bevada yachol levarach nit yadayim. Let's say you're in a sink that doesn't have koach gavra. You don't have a kli. Or you open up and some say that's not called koach gavra. Then it's mashma that you do make a bracha of Netilat Yadayim. And that the Rama mentions shar dvarim psulim, that's only going if you don't have a revi'it. And therefore the Bir Alacha brings many achronim that way, that you could make a bracha. But he says, either way, I didn't bring this down because either way, many poskim say you could make Netilat Yadayim regardless, like he brought in the Mishnah Berurah. Now here, it gets interesting because removing Ruach Ra is only al yedei a kli and only al yedei certain conditions. So if that's the case, what happens? And this is a very good example of where you're going to see there's going to be a deviation between the Moroccan poskim and Edut HaMizrach. What happens if Ruach Ra doesn't get removed, but the Shulchan Aruch would hold it's okay? So there's a phenomenal edition of the Mishnah Berurah that came out of Rav Yaakov Hillel's yeshiva called Aliba de Hilchata. It's a very fat edition. Now this is a little different than the other Mishnah Berurahs. This twist, they have a lot of Dvarim al pi Kabbalah over here, which you're going to see. Dvarim al pi Kabbalah obviously were held by Sfardim and Ashkenazim alike. The Magen Avram brings many times the Arizal. But you're going to see there's times where the anything al pi Kabbalah is taken much more to the extreme by Edut HaMizrach than by the Sfaradim. And now here is a perfect example. Rav Yaakov Hillel's Mishnah Berurah over here, they are posek that Ruach Ra'ah, if Ruach Ra doesn't go away, you can't make a bracha. And therefore he says, the Bir Alacha brings that if you don't have a clear koach gavra, you could still make a bracha, even if those who say you can't make a bracha. But he says, according to the Zohar HaKadosh, you can't make a bracha if you still have Ruach Ra. This is where there would be a difference for Edut HaMizrach and Sfaradim. According to us, I'm not 100% machriya on this, but it's very possible that for the Sfaradim, if you have the main reasons of the Shulchan Aruch, that means it's not water that's pasul in Netilat Yadayim, but you're missing the nekuda of kli, it could be you could make the bracha of netilat yadayim, even though ruach ra is not removed. Let me show you a few more examples on this sugya. If you go further to Seif Zayin, Tov lehakpid benetilat yadayim shacharit b'kol hadvarim hame'akvim benetilat yadayim leseuda. It's good to be makpid on netilat yadayim of the morning of everything that's me'akev or netilat yadayim leseuda, which would mean practically speaking, we know water for sure, but over here he's saying tov, like things that require zehirut be'alma. Things that require zehirut be'alma. Now the Mishnah Berurah, the Rama says, miu enu me'akev lo kli ve'lo koach gavra. V'shar dvarim ha'poslim netilat yadayim leseuda. So once again, what did we say? The mikubalim seem to be choshesh that you can't make a bracha if you don't have a kli. But the Shulchan Aruch doesn't mention kli anywhere. All he says is, tov le'akpid benetilat yadayim. So this would be a perfect example of a nafkamina that the Shulchan Aruch says tov lizar b'shar dvarim. He only talks about mayim psulim. You can't make a bracha. Otherwise, everything else you would be able, like the Bir Halacha points out. So we would follow this Bir Halacha over here, but Edut HaMizrach, it seems to be or would be choshesh to make a bracha, and they would say safek brachot le'akel. I wanted to mention on this point that there's even though that you would seem that you can't make a bracha, but it seems to be in the Sefer Od Yosef Chayav, the Ben Ish Chai himself is mashma you could make a bracha on something without a kli, and Shelotu Tshuvot Lecha Shlomo from Rabbi Shlomo HaKohen is also mashma that b'diavad you could make a bracha if you don't have a kli. So that supports our derech hapsak over here, not like what it's written in the Mishnah Berurah of Aliba Deil Chata. Another example, if you take a look in Sifkatan Yud Zayin, and I'm trying to do this to get us ragil to see and notice how we learn al pi the derech hapsak of the Sfaradim. Yud Zayin lo kli rotze lomar de mahani af lavir ruach ra'ah. ולכן, אם אין לו כלי שלם, מותר ליטול מכלי נקוב וכן plump, which is a pump. אף שאין בו כאן כוח גברה. Even though it doesn't have a כוח גברה, it's going to help to a certain degree. And here, once again, the Mishnah Berurah of Aliba Deil Chata brings that according to the Zohar Kadosh and the Arizal, you need a kli to remove the ruach ra. But we're going to go kipshuto, that you don't need that over here. And it could be for a certain element of ruach ra, according to Bet Yosef, it did remove, like the Mishnah Berurah's mashma in Sharat Tzion Sivkat al Chava from the Chayei Adam. So it seemed to be it would be okay. Any more nafkaminas? If you take a look in the Shulchan Aruch Sifkatan Sif Yud Bet, im shichshech yadav letoch kli shel mayim. Let's say you dunked your hands in a vessel of water. So you're good for tefillah and netilat yadayim, but not for ruach ra. Could you make a bracha? So Mishnah Berurah says you could make a bracha of netilat yadayim. And once again, according to the Zohar, you can, but according to Chachmei Ma'arav, it's very possible that you would be able to make a bracha. So you see, in this siman, it's reoccurring. If you would read the hagaot of, let's say, Aliba Deil Chata, they're telling you, you can never make a bracha, or you never make a bracha. It's not so simple according to Maran, and therefore, it's this is one main difference in these simanim. I've shown it 4 or 5 different places so far. Okay, a fascinating Mishnah Berurah over here is in Siman Dalid Seif Yud Chet. Okay? Elu dvarim srichim netila b'mayim. It is these things that you need to do netilat yadayim with water. Hakam me'amita, getting up from your bed. Ve'ayotze mibet hakiseh, somebody who goes out of the bathroom. Umibet hamirchatz, or from the bathhouse. Ve'anotel tzipornav, if you cut your nails. Ve'acholetz min alav, you take off your shoes. Ve'anogia beraglav, you touch your feet. Chofef rosho. And some say even if you go between the dead, somebody who touched the dead, somebody who removes lice, somebody who's mishamesh mitato, somebody who has intimate relations, somebody who touches a louse, somebody who touches his body with his hand, somebody does all of these things. If he didn't wash his hands, if he's a Talmid Chacham, he could forget his learning. If he's not a Talmid Chacham, he could go crazy. What do you see from over here? That somebody who goes out of the bathroom, he has to wash 3 times, right? Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah Lametet. Av letefila, ken laTorah, dai achar kolim nikayun be'alma. Mikolma. So even though in order to pray, all you have to do is have your hands clean, Mikol makom, says the Mishnah Berurah, listalek ruach ra'ah, in order to remove ruach ra'ah, tzarich dafka mayim, you need water. Ve'ayin likaman sivkatan mem aleph, ve'en tzarich shalosh pe'amim ki b'kamita. You only need 3 times if it's kam b'mita. And the Mishnah Berurah brings down, ubesefer hechal hakodesh, מחמיר ביוצא מבית הכיסא 3 פעמים, ובמגן אברהם סתר דבריו. In the Sefer Hechal HaKodesh, he says you need 3 times. Right? And the Magen Avraham argues on him. Who was the Sefer Hechal HaKodesh? The Sefer Hechal HaKodesh was Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon Elbaz, one of the great Mikubalim from Tarudant. Tarudant is a city like close to where the Etrogim come from in Morocco. It was a very far out city where there was a group of Mikubalim, and at the time of the Arizal. And the Magen Avraham got hold of the Sefer Hechal HaKodesh, and he's quoting the Hechal HaKodesh, and he's the one who says you need Netilat Yadayim 3 times. And there are many Ashkenazim that actually wash when they go outside of the bathroom 3 times, based on the Hechal HaKodesh from Moshe ben Maimon Tarudant. And the irony is that Rabbi Shalom Mesas in Chelek Gimel Siman Lamed Zayin writes that our minhag was never to wash 3 times, just to wash our hands. So the Ashkenazim who are machmir on 3 times, they're based on Rav Moshe ben Maimon Elbaz from Tarudant, and Dafka the Moroccan minhag is not like him. So I just found that interesting. Not only the Moroccan minhag, Rav Ben Zion Mutzafi brings that all of the Edut HaMizrach Mekubalim, Rav Izra Atiyah, Rav Tzadka, Ben Zion Abba Shaul, Mutzafi, they all washed without a kli, and when they went out of the bathroom. And they didn't need 3, and they some of them washed 3 times, but they didn't wash with the kli. Truth is, Rabbi Yeshua Maman writes in Chelek Vav Siman Yud Bet that somebody who washes with the kli kadosh yomar lo, but the Machzik Beracha says of the Chida says we're not noeg 3 times, and we don't need a kli, and that was the minhag also in Morocco. So it's actually quite fascinating how these how this halacha played out. Okay, do we still have time in the meeting or not? Yeah? Okay, let's continue. What happens? Now let's go to the bracha of Asher Yatzar. Siman Vav. Kesheyotze mibet hakiseh. When a person goes outside of the bathroom, Yevarech Asher Yatzar et Adam bechokma. Should make a bracha of Asher Yatzar Adam bechokma. Shebriat ha'adam hi bechokma nifla'a. Because the creation of a man is done with tremendous wisdom. And the Shulchan Aruch goes on to explain exactly what the bracha means in great detail. In Siman Bet, Shulchan Aruch writes, Yesh noagin le'amtin v'rech netilam ad boam lebita knesset u'misadrim oto im shar brachat. Some say Asher Yatzar with everything else. B'nei Sfarad lo nagu ken. The minhag of Sfaradim is that we do it at home already. Okay? Continues the Shulchan Aruch in Siman Zayin. Kol hayom כשעושה צרכיו, בין קטנים, בין גדולים, מברך אשר יצר ולא על נטילת ידיים. All day, whether you have to go to the bathroom a little bit or a lot, you make asher yatzar and not al netilat yadayim. Now, how long do you have to do al netilat yadayim? How long do you have to wait? So Shulchan Aruch writes, Mishtabura says like this. Let's say you went to the bathroom and you forgot to say al netilat yadayim. It's not a good idea. It's forgot to say asher yatzar. It's not a good idea to wait, by the way. One of my kabbalot that I had for Yamim Noraim that I took upon myself is as soon as I'm mechuyev in making a bracha charona, I should do it. I should stop. I shouldn't say, okay, let me wait 2 more minutes. Because what happens is you wait 2 more minutes and then you don't know, and then something else comes up, and then you can have a lot of safek berachot. So it's not such a big deal. It's a very small thing, but you could save yourself a lot of trouble with brachot. So either way, afilu im nimshach zman gadol achar asiyat tzrachim, afilu achi chayav levarech. Even though you waited a long time, you could still chayav levarech. Now, what happens if you mamash didn't go to the bathroom for a long time and then you have to go again? Then you feel you have to go again. Data pri megadim de mikodem shiati levarech asher yatzar etala rishona. That you should first make asher yatzar and then go to the bathroom. You can't go to the bathroom and then mechuyev twice, then you're in a big problem. Now here, it's very interesting because the opinion of many of the Sfaradim, of the Edut HaMizrach, the Ben Ish Chai brings down, and others, is that you only have a half hour to make Asher Yatzar. If you didn't make a bracha within a half hour, you lost it. The Ritva in Masechet Psachim writes, you have 72 minutes. And Rav Ovadia Yosef in Yabi Omer, I think it's Chelek Chet, I'm not exactly sure, writes that you have, actually it's Chelek Tet, Siman Tzadi Chet, Ot Aleph. And Rav Ovadia Yosef says, based on this Ritva, you have 72 minutes. So, I don't really know what the psak would be, but if you look at the Bet Oved, which is a common sefer that was used in Morocco, the Sidur Bet Oved, he brings B'Shem the Teshuvah of Eliezer Nachum, that, like the Mishtabura, that you could wait all day. So, I know Rav Baruch Toledano brings all you have is a half hour, but since you have a Ritva Mifurash that says longer, and you have the Bet Oved that says you have all day, at least 72 minutes, I think you could be somach to make a bracha of Asher Yatzar. You see, if you would take the halacha of Safek Bracha B'Akil to the extreme, it would be really hard. But over here, at least you have the Bet Oved at least you have the 72 minutes of the Ritva of Rishonim that you could be somech on. Okay, that seems to be one halacha. Another important halacha in Siman Zayin is the following, and this is going to be our last halacha. Siv Gimel, Siman Zayin Siv Gimel. Hitil mayim ve'siach da'ato milatil mayim ve'achar kach nimlach ve'til mayim pam acher tzarich levarech shti pa'amim asher yitzar. It's a very big chidush from the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch writes that if you went to the bathroom and you distracted yourself and then you didn't make a bracha of Asher Yatzar, and then you went to the bathroom, you went again to the bathroom, you have to make Asher Yatzar twice. Imagine, you go to the bathroom, you have to make Asher Yatzar twice. Because each time going to the bathroom requires another Asher Yatzar. Mishtabura says that everyone argues on this. Shulchan Aruch brings it below shum cholek, and the Mishtabura says, not that way. Mishtabura says, shte pe'amim, אבל הרבה אחרונים חולקים על פסק זה, וסוברים דשני תפילה שמקום קורבן. The reason why the Shulchan Aruch said you have to say Asher Yatzar twice is because just like a tefillah, if you miss 2 tefillot, you have to do 2 tashlubin. Over here, it's also you twice. You have to make each Asher Yatzar requires a new. Each going to the bathroom requires a Asher Yatzar. It's like a tefillah to do it twice. But many achronim argue, and they say that's only by tefillah because it's like korbanot. But Asher Yatzar is bikat hoda'ah. One hoda'ah should exempt everything. So since the Mishnah Berurah argues on this, the Sephardic achronim argue on this as well. But this, I think that since in Morocco they were the pioneers in accepting the opinion of Maran, and we're accepting Maran nafilu keneged elef poskim, why would this be any different? And this is where there's the misconception, ki'ilu, everybody says Maran, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, the Moroccan Masoret was very strong in Maran. Over here, as I mentioned, almost every single Sephardic posek goes against Maran. I have one of the other Mishnah Berurahs. I'll give you an example. Let me see what they say over here. Siman Chet. I'm sorry, it's Siman Zayin. But Ishchai and Kafachaim write, Safek brachot lakel, you don't make a bracha. However, based on what we were saying about Klalei Psak, we should follow Maran. It's a little bit scary, and you'll see in the next shiur in Hilchot Tzitzit, it's a little bit difficult to go like Maran when everybody doesn't, but I found that the Ma'amar Mordechai is posek like Maran over here. And one of the modern day acharonim, actually, Rav Moshe Alevi in the Sefer Birkat Hashem, it was niftar already. He also has a long arichut that he also strengthens dat Maran. So I think Kal Vachomer, according to our Mesoret Apsak, not like these Sephardic acharonim. And if you go to the bathroom twice without saying Asher Yatzar, you would say Asher Yatzar twice. So that I think is a chidush. Now, Kal Vachomer, follow me over here. If you're mesupik if you said Asher Yatzar, even one time, then you have a sveika to make a bracha. Right? Then you say it if you're mesupik if you made Asher Yatzar. So safek, maybe you said you didn't say Asher Yatzar, and even if you did, you're chayav twice. So you could say it at least one time. So that I think for sure we'd be able to follow. Even if you want to be so machmer, at least in that case you would be machmer. So once again, these are fascinating examples on how we just went through an overview up to Siman Chet the Shulchan Aruch, how the Masoret of Chachmei HaMa'arav would be to be posek. Chazak ubaruch.